Good morning. You know, there's a phrase within that song that I like, and I'm hoping that each of you are actually grabbing a hold of this one line of there's this thing called truth, right? So what I love about science mimics theology. It isn't a disprover of theology. It actually confirms the things that we believe by faith. And it keeps going on and on and on, approving these things that were spoken thousands of years ago that, yes, there's something greater than us, right? There's these elements that they call God elements. Why? Because they cannot be explained. They are so powerful, so unique. So they say, hey, this is a creation beyond anything that we know how to create or can be created. It just exists. God elements. The reason I bring that up is when we talk about truth. In science, there is one truth. And if we take that concept and then apply it to what we think about God and the things that we hear about ourselves as people, if you are loved, if you are cared for, and if that is true, then all these other things must be what? False. You cannot be unloved. You cannot be this bad person, these bad things that people keep trying to put on you as humans. This is truth. Hopefully you got that from this song. I have the honor, of course, of speaking to you today, and I'm just trying to get warmed up. And I'm dealing with this thought because at least 5 people have come up to me. And I don't know where I got this reputation. They said, keep it short. And I was like, wow, something's changed. Do me. Oh, see, that's my baby. She said, do me. Well, we'll go and see how it goes. But I hope to give you something that you can take with you throughout the week. So let me jump in. So for those of you, we love in this church to be able to discuss the word, right? So after service, we have in the gathering room, we get together and we just talk about both the sermon, the word, and it's okay to question any and everything I say. I won't be offended. I'm not God. I'm not his little brother either. So it's okay. And I actually love it because now I can understand where you are and where we connected or something I said that just didn't make sense. So I invite you to do that. I also invite you to listen to our podcast, catch us on YouTube, on Twitter, and all those connecting things because there's often topics that are on your mind right now that we're not speaking about right now, but we have spoken about them. So we put those tools out there to you, right? So where I get to dive in today is moving on from what Sandra talked about last week in the first part of John 18. And some of the things that she brought out was about the different perspectives that John introduces in the telling of the story of Jesus Christ as he's about to go off and be crucified and then resurrected. And so she talked about just the little details that John interjects to help us to understand the complexities of what's going on. And I brought something with me just in case, because there's something she brought up about how the different authors highlight different things, right? And there's a great tool that we have in our library about the synoptics of the Gospels. And you're able to go from beginning to end, just comparing what Mark, Matthew, Luke, John say about this topic, where there's overlap and gaps. of how do we come up with this full story. And it's important that we understand the full story and why there are differences in the authors and what were they trying to do. So I encourage you to take advantage of resources like that. Right? So, what are we going to talk about today? So we've gotten to the point where Jesus has been taken captive. Peter's gotten into a fight, cut off somebody's ear. He's gangster like that. Jesus had to put the ear back on to calm everybody back down. Because remember, they showed up with a detachment of soldiers, police, and slaves. And a detachment is between 300 and 600 people. And then you have the police and the slaves. So, and they show up with lanterns. I understand the lanterns, you want to see, might be night. But then there's torches and weapons. So this wasn't a kind greeting. But the part that's amazing to me is in the middle of all that, Peter has the nerve to pull out his knife and start swinging. You know, Sandra described him as, he's about that life. And if you know about that life, you know what Peter was. You couldn't intimidate Peter. You wouldn't just go roll up on him and his crew and he'd take it lying down. That's not Peter. That's why I want to be called, if there's a wing of Christianity, I want to be on the Peter side. Because Peter gets it done. You roll up on us, things can happen. I know, I need to be saved, don't I? All right. So that's my disclosure of me. Let's read. So we're going to start with chapter 18, verse 12 through 18, and then we're going to jump to 25 through 27. And it reads like this. So the soldiers, their officer, and the Jewish police arrested Jesus and bound him. They first took him to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it was better to have one person die for the people. Simon Peter and another disciple followed Jesus. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter was standing outside at the gate. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out, spoke to the woman who guarded the gate, and brought Peter in. The woman said to Peter, "You are not also one of this man's disciples, are you?" He said, "I am not." Now the slaves and the police had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing around it and warming themselves. Peter also was standing with them and warming himself. Jumping to verse 25. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. They asked him, "You are not also one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it and said, "I am not." One of the slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, "Did I not see you in the garden with him?" Again, Peter denied it. And at that moment, the cock crowed. The reading of the word. So if you have been around church a little bit or a while, you commonly have heard this story, and it focused primarily on the works of Peter, in the life of Peter. And with good purpose, right? So Peter's a major player in all of this. Like I said, if there's a wing of Christianity in heaven, I want to be on the Peter wing because somebody's got my back. That's Peter. Peter's bold. Peter's one of the first disciples of Jesus when he starts his ministry. Peter is one of the people who asks, "Can I be at your right hand, Jesus, in heaven?" Peter participates in miracles, right? He walks on water. Peter's also, when Jesus asks, "Whom do you say I am?" He speaks out and said, "You are the Son of God." It's one of the first to ever say such a thing. So I understand the focus and the power of focusing on Peter and what he's doing and has done. Also, when you focus on Peter, it helps to complete the story of the prophecy of Jesus when he says, "You will deny me." It completes that story. It also helps us to see ourselves in Peter when we are a little bit too confident about who we are and what we will do. At times, we are extremely confident about our beliefs and about how bold we are and the things that we will say in the middle of anyone about what we believe and who we are, what we profess to be. We see all of that in Peter. But there's this other character that I got to be honest with you. For many years, I never even acknowledged was there. John says that there's this other disciple who also goes. Not only does he follow Jesus all the way to the courtyard, he has the ability to go into the courtyard. And then where they are there, they start to make some things happen. Now, we don't know the name of this unnamed, this new disciple that is on the scene. In fact, some of the writers don't even mention this disciple. There's some speculation about who that disciple may be, but all we scarcely know is this disciple is known by the high priest, which is interesting and strange for this vagabond group of disciples to have someone within their midst that knows the high priest, right? This is the High Siditi folks. Anybody offended by the High Siditi? Yeah, I know y'all High Siditi. All right. They're able to get into the courtyard. We don't know if the reason this disciple knows the high priest is because they were neighbors. Did they go to school together? Were they a family member? Did they do work together? Did they do business together? We don't really know, but we know they know each other. And by that association, this disciple can walk right in. No problem. No problem. You can do this thing. And I'm here. There's this big hubbub going on, but I have the ability, and I am a disciple of Jesus, and I can walk right into this horrific event. No one challenges me. It's an interesting reality. And then this disciple has the courage of, while he's in the midst of all of this going on, right next to Jesus in the courtyard, while he's being questioned, sees Peter. And didn't leave Peter out there. Goes and gets Peter. Talks to the maiden. Maiden lets him in. Brings him close enough so now he can hear and see Jesus. He uses his role, his authority within society to bring Peter in. Right? This is the situation that's going on. And I wonder, why is John's inclusion of this piece of the story important? Why is that important? There is a belief, or there is a perspective that John is including this detail because it bridges the big story of the prophecy to the realities of what happens in day-to-day life. There's a bridge. right? A big prophecy comes out. Let's use in our life and that we understand today. You'll get, when people are young and they want to potentially get married and have a loving, large family or become wealthy, that's the prophecy. But between that and the reality, there's these practical things that happen every day that is a combination of situations and decisions that they become a reality, that the prophecy is fulfilled. These things don't generally just fall out of the sky because I've been waiting for my millions to fall out the sky. But they don't seem to happen. Ted, did it happen in your life? Not yet? Okay. Joe? Not yet? Jim? Not yet? Cheryl? Not yet. None of us. We all ain't saved, I guess. But we are. There's this practical reality that John keeps reminding us of. And in a similar way, I know, or I can imagine, Peter thought Jesus was crazy when he prophesied, before the cock crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. Peter couldn't imagine that there was a situation that he could be put in that he would deny his Lord and friend. But now we have this situation where there's at least 600 people that are against you, and at least one of them know you cut off their family member's ear, standing around you, and you're inside now a locked gate with all of them. The tension is rising for Peter. And in the middle of those circumstances and pressure and reality, Peter breaks. Peter's human. Peter's normal. Peter, the rock, is crushed. Right? And there's an interesting word usage that gets Peter tripped up. I want 3 people to help me because I want you to visualize what I'm about to say next. Three bold people to stand up before I have to grab. Come on. I need a third. All right. So I'm gonna have you all stand to my left. I don't want to go over because the speakers start giving me a lot of feedback, right? So want one of you to be the unnamed disciple.
That'll be me.
All right, unnamed disciple. You stand here. You be Peter. You be the madam at the gate, right? So, because I want you to understand the tension that is happening and building. The unnamed disciple comes to Peter's aid, talking to the person at the gate, right? And the question the person at the gate asks, are you not also one of this man's disciples? Right? That is just a simple question. And the word that gets Peter tripped up is also. So when you use the word also, you usually mean in addition to. So the question I have is, what did this disciple say when they were asked the question? What did they say? The Bible doesn't record it. But the person at the gate knows, they know Caiaphas and they know Jesus. They know. The disciple, unknown, passes the test. No problem. 600, 700, 800 enemies, and they survive. Why? They are comfortable with this. They know this environment. Peter does not. Peter is trapped in his mind of what is going on. See, that's what I would have did. I would have ushered Peter right back on out. But no.
We went in.
Oh, the end is this way. It is this way. See, when you have help, sometimes, right? Also, Peter is bold, yes. Peter is talented, yes. Peter's nervous. Peter is in unfamiliar surroundings. And now no longer is this bold and brash individual. The reality of who they really are on the inside is coming to the surface so they can see who they are. And it took a situation where the first person asked the question, the second person asked the question, the third person still did not pause and think, well, what did my friend say? What did they say? Because if I'm afraid that these people are going to kill me or harm me, somehow my friend has figured it out. There is an answer. Thank you. Did you get the pressure of what's going on? And at times we miss these details because, let's be honest, we're in a society that we love big visions and big prophecies and we forget the details. But when we forget the details, we forget how things come together. And when we forget how things come together, we forget how we connect to one another. There is a connection now happening between these disciples of Jesus. And in our celebrity society, I get it. We love the big picture. We love our stories and bullet points. We want to get it quick, then move on to the next story, and the next story, and the next story. Right? So we love talking about Batman, but we don't even talk about Robin. In fact, Robin isn't even in the latest movies. Off the comic book, what? Batman and Robin. Robin's just gone. Right? We want to be the Lone Ranger, but forgive me if you got Tonto. Right? We want to be Sherlock Holmes and not Dr. Watson. And we all would rather be James Brown than Bobby Bird. Am I in the wrong house this morning? There's a lot of head shaking going on online. This is who we are. This is just our natural position that we have in this society. Headline celebrity. Headline and celebrity doesn't give you the story. Headline celebrity doesn't give you why things are happening. And we're missing a part of the story about this other disciple. Why are they doing what they are doing? How did this become to be? And at times we can think of this unnamed disciple like we think of these other characters. We think of them as sidekicks. We think of them as somewhat lesser. But can you imagine what happens to the story if this disciple doesn't do their role? What happens to the story? Can Jesus even make the prophecy about Peter if Jesus isn't confident in the consistency of this other disciple? Does Peter transform himself into the leader he will need to be when Jesus leaves the earth Can he transform himself? Because remember, Peter's bold. Peter, at times, a loudmouth. Can he lead with this type of attitude without a little bit of humility? Without a little bit of understanding life and the pressures of these different environments and what they put on us? Can he do it? Because if you can think of the other disciple in the same model and in the same mode of all these other sidekicks, think of this. Have you ever watched one of these shows and see what happens to the main character if the sidekick got mad and left the main character out to dry? Their stories would immediately end. And in a like manner, if this disciple doesn't do what he is supposed to do, the development of Peter ends. Or at least it's greatly delayed. So the humility, the thinking of higher of themselves than he should, Peter never gets to this point. He can never be what God needs Peter to be. And so I say this to some of you that may have been around a little bit, a little while. You got some wisdom on your side. How many Peters are you developing? Both civically and spiritually. Who are your Peters? Because, as I said, Peter's bold, talented, blessed, all of those things. But your Peter is stuck at the gate of opportunity. And it's locked for them. It needs to be unlocked. And then once they enter the gate, everybody's going to question them. Why? Doesn't belong. They know it's not a soldier. They know it's not police. They know he's not one of our slaves. They know he doesn't even talk like us. Peter's nervous. Peter's concerned. Peter's powerful, but out of his element. And it takes the accountability, the skill, and the seeing of the disciple to bring Peter in. And same way for your Peters. Are you offering up your talent, your skill, your access, the people you know and how you know them, so that your Peters can become all that God has designed them to be? Are you doing your part? Or are you one of the disciples that would immediately try to change the story into you? Right? This is your area. This is where you live. So why am I now going to help somebody who doesn't fit come in and feel welcomed and warm? Why would I do that? Because that's your assignment. That's why you do it. It's your assignment. Jesus had prayed earlier, maybe a couple of chapters ago, God make them one even as we are one. Right? There's no jealousy if we're one. There's no hurt, harm that I will cause you if we are one. I love you like God loves you if we are one. And it is because of that I will put all of my skills to work for you. As a church in Cornerstone, we have a core value of multiplying leaders. And our goal is to make sure that each and every one, that as you're called to do certain things, that you continue to be able to exist and go in the path that God has for you, in the culture that God has for you, in the language that God has for you. We endeavor to be the unknown, the unnamed disciples. Just like the pillars that are in this building, when Peter needed support, he was there. He was there. No fanfare, no overfocus, just there. And I can imagine at the end when Peter celebrated in Acts 2, that this same disciple is still there. Doesn't need to be named. And he's also excited. Peter has become what he needed to be. Ralph Waldo Emerson says this about life. Life isn't about trying to be happy. Life is about trying to be useful. It's about being honorable, compassionate. And it's to make your life make some difference and know that you have lived and lived well. Then Booker T. Washington adds on top of that, say, yes, but your happiness is built on helping others. They are the happiest people in the world. So I, in my heart, reach out to you. Help your Peters become who they were designed to be, using your talent and skill and all that it is to open those doors, because you have the answers and know how to answer the questions that will attack them in their life. Amen?